Good morning, everybody. How you doing? I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World and the Black Business School. I'm up and Adam, and I just realized my tag was still on my T-shirt. That's how tired I think I am right now. And so I got some coffee from yesterday. I'm gonna drink some of that. So uh, stuff ain't no good. I need to drink some regular hot coffee. I think I got some hot coffee coming. I got the white folks, the good white folks here in Cleveland serving me this morning. They're gonna bring me some coffee. Anyway, I'm being silly. I want to tell you guys, in case you're wondering, I'm wearing this really cool shirt that I got from a company called Unities. It's a company that one of my business partners just started, and I think she's going to start selling these for everybody. And it says, "I escaped the corporate plantation," and that's one of the things I've always believed in. Is I believe in getting out from under the grip of your oppressor. I think that, and this is something I will remind you of every time you see me, or every time you talk to me, every time you ask me for advice, every time you ask me why white folks got their foot in your neck and you don't know why and how to get out from under that. And I will tell you that a lot of it comes down to who's paying your bills. If somebody's paying your bills, they're probably not going to let you talk shit to them. They're probably going to try to control you in some way. So the best way to kind of deal with that and fight back against that sort of oppression is to make sure that your income streams are diversified. Make sure you got money coming in from different sources. Make sure that you always have options for yourself. Make sure that you always have somewhere to go in the event that they decide they just don't like you no more. And that's a true talk from my own life. When I was at Syracuse University, I can't begin to tell you how horrible it was working for people who hated my guts every day. Now, since I stopped working for those people, my life got a lot better. I've been able to actually do what I want. Oh, I'm turning this. Sorry, I'm messing around with my computer. It's to the point where I truly feel each day I'm happy with what I do. I'm happy with the fact that I can do what I want. Kind of when I want, go where I want, work with who I want. It's a beautiful feeling to be able to work with black people every day. So, if you want to be happy and get around your own people, you're not really, it's really funny. Like we kind of think it's not natural to have the chance to be around black people every day. We kind of think that we have to kind of leave the village in order to find economic opportunity. And one of the things I learned, over time, just by studying this process, is that it doesn't have to be that way. You don't have to leave your people in order to find what you're looking for. You can actually find it within yourself and find it within your community. But you kind of have to be creative about it. You kind of have to know. How to do that, how to build, how to create. It's no different from food. It's like if I'm really hungry and I don't know how to cook, and I don't know how to, like grow my own food, then effectively all I know how to really do is go out and beg for food. All I know how to do is go find somebody who can get me food and who can give it to me. But if I learn how to cook and grow my own food, then I can stay home and still eat good. In fact, I can eat better at home than I can anywhere else because when I'm at home, me and my people, we know exactly what to cook that I like to eat. I don't have to eat somebody else's recipe in order to get by. So anyway, I think about this. I was thinking about this morning when I woke up because I remember back before people were really kind of doing the internet thing. Before this kind of really became what it is, I remember I used to dream about that. I used to say, man, I wish I could just work from home and not have to actually leave the house. I wish I could be around black people and not have to deal with, just ignorance from other people who didn't understand me. And now it's kind of like that is my life. So whatever kind of life you dream about, I want to encourage you to make sure you think about what it takes to build that life and make those investments necessary to do that. Because if I had to point out one thing in my life that made the difference as far as my quote unquote success, whatever that is, it would be the fact that I always thought about the future. I always thought, okay, what can I do now that's going to give me what I want later? How can I spend a few years living like nobody else will, so I can spend the rest of my life living like nobody else can. That's extremely important in terms of building the life that you want. Now let's see here. Corell is asking a question about the stock market. She thinks it's rigged and that real estate's a better investment. I don't agree. The stock market actually, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not telling you that you're crazy or nothing like that. I mean, we know that some of this is rigged. We know that a lot of the stock market volatility is driven by some of these young, arrogant, coked out white boys who made bad decisions. But I'll tell you what, if you look at the returns of the stock market, I have a Wall Street Journal in my room somewhere. I wish I could show it to you. But on the cover of it, I took a picture of it. I put it on my Instagram, which is the real Boyce Watkins, by the way. All my information is actually in this. In the content of this feed. So if you want to follow me on social media, it's all there. We even have a way you can follow me via text message if you want to. But basically, I took a picture of the stock market and how the market kind of has done this over time. And I said, look, if you're not invested, you're missing out on all of that. And really, the stock market is the difference between middle class and wealthy people. The difference is that middle class people tend to put most of their wealth in their house. Rich people put their wealth in their home, and they buy second properties, and they buy stocks consistently. Like in one of the programs at the Black Business School, I explained basically that if you buy your child a little bit of stock every month from the time they're born, and you just buy different shares, your child won't have money problems unless they're just absolutely crazy and throw their money away. They're going to have a couple $100,000 at least in the bank by the time they're 30 years old, and maybe even as much as $1 million by the time they're between 30 and 40 years old. So what that does is that takes your child out of the poverty victim category. They're not somebody who is walking around saying, "Woe is me! Everybody's getting rich but me. Everybody's getting rich off of me. I'm a victim." Blah 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 blah. They actually say, "Well, I'm not a victim of this system because I understand the system. I understand where to position myself so that I'm not going to get screwed." Because one of the sneaky realities about the future of Black America is that and this is something most people don't think about, most people don't know, is that in the future, things are only going to get worse for workers and people who don't own capital, people who don't own resources, people who don't produce things. The more of a consumer you are, consumer meaning buying things and just buying silly stuff, shoes and clothes and vacations and all that, the more of a consumer you are, the more this economy is designed to screw you. I would say, be very cautious and thoughtful about that. And so anybody else who has a lot of deep financial questions, we're going to hit the topic of the day. That's what we cover on the live stream. But if you have any serious financial questions and you want to guarantee that I answer your question, I actually have a very low-cost financial coaching program that you can check into at askdrboyce.com. Write this down. It's askdrboyce.com. The first month is free. After that, there is a charge. But what happens is in this program, you send me questions every week, and I answer them via video just like this. And what I do is I say, Bob says, I say, okay, the next question is from Bob. Bob says, I just put $500 into it costs $500 to open an E-Trade account. Should I do it? Is it a good idea or not? That's when I go into what I think about E-Trade and Ameritrade and opening up the trade accounts. So that's kind of how we do that. But if you want to know the answer to your question, Jimmy, I'm actually reciting Jimmy Wood's question. The answer is, I think E-Trade and Ameritrade, all of them are pretty good. I use Ameritrade, but some people use E-Trade. I'm not going to say one's better than the other. It's askdrboyce.com. So what I'm going to do is type in the URL in the comments section so that you can write it down. Let's see here, askdrboyce.com. So yeah, that's my lower cost financial coaching program, because the reason we created that was because there were a lot of people who had financial questions, and I have a manager who kind of says that we have to charge a certain rate to separate people who are really serious about what they're trying to do versus those who just want to talk. And not to say I can't talk to everybody, but at the same time, the challenge of trying to build something independent is that you have to find some affordable way to build your business. And so ultimately, everything we do is independent. We don't take money from corporations. We don't take money from white people. We don't take money from the government. And in order to do that, we have to have a reciprocal relationship with the Black community. What does that mean? That means that the Black Business School can't be totally free, although we have a lot of free things for the community. We have free forums periodically, etc. But at the same time, we come back and say, okay, here's a class. Going to college and learning from somebody like me. When I was at Syracuse, people pay $50,000 a year to learn from me. But we have a class for you for $200, $300. And that's the trade. The price drops to almost nothing, but there is a price so that we can pay bills. So the same way Umar Johnson was raising money to build a school, I'm raising money to run a school that does actually exist. Now Umar's school may exist one day, but I don't, and I don't know what his plan is, but I can say that when we tell you we're going to build a school, you can expect a blueprint. You can expect something in action, in motion within a couple of months. Not just a theory. So because what I do find, and this is something that's really important, and this is one of the reasons why I wish I could talk to some people that raise a lot of money online. Not so much Umar. I'm not talking about him. I'm just talking about anybody who's who has an idea for, say, they might come to me and say, Dr. Boyce, we want to build the next Black Wall Street, or Dr. Boyce, we want to build a school, or Dr. Boyce, we want to build a corporation, or Dr. Boyce, we want to build a new Black Hollywood. And what happens is they have a vision in their head that's like, that's like massive. Like I need $1 billion. I need to raise $5 million, or we need 25 shops and all these buildings. And I'm sitting there visualizing, wait a minute, that's going to be a lot of money. That's going to be hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions. So what happens is that you end up being discouraged because the cost is so high that it becomes something that seems insurmountable. And what I say is, start where you're at. Like, don't feel like you got to build the next great empire in 2 weeks. Just start where you're at. So with the blackbusinessschool.com, I didn't have money to build a school. So I said, well, you know what we can do? We can start online. We can build something online, get some experts together. There's plenty of Black experts out here we can bring together. Professors from universities where the white schools have kicked them out, or they're in places where they can't teach Black folks. And I said, let's gather some of those people. So I reached out to Julianne Malveaux, Dr. Claude Anderson, Tariq Nasheed, respected Black business people who have built things independently. And I said, hey, I've got this thing I'm trying to do. Will you guys come through and teach, or let me throw you some money. Let us invest in you. Like, so with Tariq and Hidden Colors, we have helped Tariq Nasheed raise probably $70,000-$80,000 on this film. Maybe more than that, through various partnerships that we do with him. And so we become one of Tariq's biggest suppliers. He's become a supplier for us in terms of providing expertise, access to this Black film, and I can still be a Black man without worrying about what my business partners are going to think, because Tariq and I are brothers. We're brothers who don't agree sometimes. We sometimes Tariq threw. Somebody asked me if I was throwing shade at Umar, and I wasn't throwing shade at Umar. I was giving a critique, and that's the thing. Tariq has critiqued me. Tariq has critiqued me on multiple occasions. I've never become offended by it. I'll reach out to him, I text him, I'll be like, hey man, what was that shit you just said about blah blah blah? Let me break it down for you. But it's never a I'm mad at you or I can't talk to you ever again kind of thing, because that's childish. I mean, real bosses don't really think that way. If you're trying to be a boss, give me 1 second, guys. I got some food coming in. Hold on for 1 second. Good morning. How are you?
Should I bring that in for you?
Yes, you can lay right here on the bed.
Okay. Do you want me to take the other tray away?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You said on the bed, sir?
Yeah, you just pop on the bed. I'm doing a webcast here, so I'm gonna. The phone went out, huh? Okay, I'll solve this.
I'll take this away.
Okay.
How's your stay with us?
Oh, it's very good. Thank you.
Because when you don't pick up your tray, or you can leave it outside the door, sir?
I'll leave it outside the door.
Okay, I'll put these back. Do you need these?
Not the decaf. Thank you.
You have a good day.
You too, man. Thank you. Okay, guys, I'm back. If you're watching on YouTube, you probably saw the really awkward exchange where I'm talking to the lady who delivered my food. I don't know if you guys have noticed that the trend has evolved in terms of how I do these conversations. They're a little longer, more involved. So it's almost like a radio show now. And I'll tell you about that in a second. Let me tell the people on Facebook to please refresh the page. The live stream is continuing above. Okay, so I'm telling the people on Facebook to refresh their page, because for whatever reason it was very strange. As soon as I got up, my phone went out. So I don't know if Facebook does that. And I'm just laughing because I'm in a hotel room and I'm just sitting there thinking, wow, they're seeing just how messy my my room is, but I don't care. You know what I mean? I don't hide all that stuff. I think it's easier actually, in case anybody's ever thinking about trying to do something in the public. I think it's better to be honest about who you are. Just, if you have something about you that may seem a little strange to other people, I personally think that it's better to just let it out and be yourself than it is to try to pretend to be something that you're not. Back in the day, back when people used to just do TV and radio and there was no internet, people would try to have these brands that were just, crystal clear and perfect. And one of the things I thought about when I built my own brand was I said, I don't want people to think I'm perfect, because when people think you're perfect, then that means that when they find out that you're not perfect, it's a huge hit to your brand. It's a huge hit in terms of your reputation, because they're like, oh my gosh, I thought this person never lied and they never cussed and they would never ever cheat on their wife and blah 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 blah. And then next thing you know, you end up looking crazy like Tiger Woods or something like that, And so so I really don't go out of my way to try to be anything other than just what I am, because at the end of the day, one of the things I had to conclude, I think this would be helpful to any young person listening. I had to just kind of conclude that who I am is good enough. That if you have a problem with who I am, that's your problem. It's not mine. So just, when you do stuff, just be yourself. Just, don't act a complete ass. Don't do anything that's really going to embarrass yourself. And some stuff you got to keep to yourself. Like I'm not going to just be totally ratchet. But at the end of the day, I think it's best for me to just kind of let you know, hey, I'm human in advance, so that if something occurs, and let's say somebody comes out and they're like, "Oh no, we found out that Dr. Boyce Watkins is that he if Dr. Boyce Watkins had sex with he had sex with a woman," and then I'll be like, "Yeah, I have a penis like every other man on earth, and sometimes I use it, and it's okay to use your penis." Like I don't, and then that way you can get back to what matters. So I just encourage you to kind of think about that, as you kind of do whatever you're going to do. Like, don't ever get to a point where you're trying to pretend to be something that you're not. That's just not that much fun. Now, back to the conversation that we were having before we were disrupted. I'm giving people on Facebook a chance to kind of pop back in. And so again, also, if in case you're wondering, this is kind of how I like to do some of these live streams. I treat it like a radio show. When I was asked to, I've been asked on many occasions lately to do radio. And the thing about doing radio or a TV show or anything, and the reason I'm not interested most of the time is because you have situations where, number one, you lose a lot of control because if somebody else's network is not yours. You end up basically being in a situation where somebody's telling you what to say. Somebody else is holding something over your head in case you mess up. They're like, oh, you'll be fired, you'll be out on the street. And um and I never like that. I don't want to be in that situation. I don't want to be controlled like that. Number two, it takes a lot of your time. One thing I've become a master at is time management. I just really knew, especially when I had limited resources, that in order for me to be successful as a scholar, I had to try my best to be the most productive scholar on the planet, and I did pretty well. I mean, when I was at Syracuse University, I actually wrote more solo authored research papers than anybody in the history of the finance department at Syracuse, based to my knowledge. I don't know anybody who did more. There certainly wasn't anybody who did more solo authored papers when I was there than I did. And a lot of that, in fact, when I was in grad school, I didn't know this, but the white boys in my program, they behind my back, they called me the machine, because I just worked so consistently. And it was because I knew that was a requirement for me to be a successful black man, was to work my ass off at all times. That's why I always avoided drugs and alcohol and anything that would distract me or alter my mind or make me lazy. And so anyway, with that being said, to this day, I still have that with me, that heavy work ethic, as well as just a consistent concern for time management. So like even when CNN called yesterday, they got canceled. They wanted me on Anderson Cooper 360 or AC 360, whatever it's called now. I was like, I'll do it, but really, I'm not happy to go on CNN, because I'm like, wait, why am I going to spend 3 hours getting ready for a 5 minute segment when I'm going to talk about topics that I didn't pick, with people who mostly aren't black? I said I'd rather sit and spend an hour, 30 minutes talking to black people from my house, and I don't actually have to leave the house. I can stay here and I can communicate with hundreds of thousands of black people. I can still do my thing, and I don't actually have to leave the house. It doesn't take me a lot of my time. And so time management is one of the key elements to success in life. Knowing how to get more out of your 24-hour day than most people do, knowing how to delegate properly is very important. I actually do teach a class on that if you're interested. It's actually called Black Keys to Greatness. So if you want to know about the class, you can go to blackkeystogreatness.com. I'll type the URL in here for those of you that are interested. The first month of that class is free, just like Ask Dr. Boyce. I told you guys about the coaching program that we have as well. Financial coaching, like, because people ask me a lot of financial questions, so we created a low-cost class where basically I'll answer any question. I guarantee you your question will be answered within a week via video directly to you. And people use that as a way to get access from a consulting standpoint without paying the regular consulting fee. So it kind of works on both ends. It allows us to pay bills. It allows you to get the information you need without giving $50,000 to a university. You can talk to a real professor for like, I think it's been like $60 a month or something like that. So anyway, going back, first thing before I move on, if you're watching this on whether it's YouTube or Facebook or anywhere else, if you could take 1 second and hit the share button, go ahead and share this to your page, to your personal feed. I would really appreciate that. Each one teach one. So as I'm teaching you, don't just absorb the information and keep it to yourself. Share it with anybody who wants to hear this. Anybody who's tired of hearing, the nonsense on TV. Anybody who's tired of seeing people who are just talking about stupid things like pop culture and gossip and silly stuff. I think there are people that like what we do here because we actually have deep conversations. We have discussions that are more objective as opposed to just these very chatty patty ridiculous kinds of things that you hear in mainstream media. And also, if you haven't gotten a free e-copy of my book, It Takes a Village to Raise the Bar, you can go to drboycewatkins.net to get the free ebook. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in drboycewatkins.net. There's a place where you can go to get a free e-copy of the book. Now jumping back in, we were talking about whether or not blackness, being super black right now is a temporary fad, or if it's something that's going to actually stick around. I find this question interesting because, in case you're wondering what my shirt says, somebody asked me. It says, "I escaped the corporate plantation," and so that's what it. And it's actually, I think they're going to start selling these on a site created by my partner called Unites, Unitees. I think about these things because, lately I've been kind of seeing everybody really, making me proud. People really stepping up to the plate when it comes to who they are and being proud of who they are and being unapologetic, not sort of cooning and bowing the way we used to. And and I think it's awesome. I think it's totally awesome. And in case you want, I'm grabbing my eggs. I think it's really cool to see that. But one of the thoughts that I had is, that if you're really trying to be down, if you're really trying to be black, in an authentic way, in a way that builds on your community, my belief is that we all need deprogramming. We all need to be trained on what it means to be black, because if we don't, what's going to happen is the issue is going to get confused. You're going to have people out here that will be engaging in coonery and defining that to be black culture because they were never taught any different. You have people that really think that, if you take the most ratchet element of hip hop, black men being proud to rap about staying high and drunk all the time, disrespecting black women, throwing all their money away, giving it to white people, engaging in criminal behavior, which is all trained to us by the white people who own record labels, the racist white people. I'm not talking about all white people. Record labels, a lot of them are owned by people who would never let their own children be hypnotized by the music that they think is okay for your children. Now, of course, we know everybody buys hip hop, but a white person listening to a ratchet rapper, a white person listening to that rapper, is not going to be affected the same way a black child will be affected. It's almost like if you go to a minstrel show and you have a black man on stage who's performing, and let's say it's one of those clubs back in the day where you only let black people into the club, only white people into the club. like the Cotton Club or something like that. Well, what's gonna happen is the white man watches the minstrel show and he's like, "Wow, that nigga sure can sing. That's really impressive, right?" But and so he might give him a tip, but he never wants to actually be the person on stage. He never actually says, "Ooh, I want to be just like him." No, he's like, "That's a nigga. I don't want to be a nigga." The black guy, the black kid in the club who's working maybe as a bus boy or something like that is gonna look up at them on the stage and say, "Ooh, I want to be up there. I want to be like that." He got that big tip from the white man. I want a big tip too. And so ultimately, what can occur is that our children are affected differently by the music than white kids. If you know anything about hanging out with white folks, and I know them very well. I mean, I grew up around white people, and I taught white kids for a long time, and I love my white students. I love them. I thought they were wonderful people, most of them. Sometimes you run into some arrogant. Usually, unfortunately, it'll be like a couple of white males that just really had some entitlement issues. And that's why I couldn't teach at Syracuse, because I'm like, I can't deal with no spoiled ass rich kids. But if you kind of look at the way they absorb our music, what happens is they don't internalize the lifestyle that comes with it. They don't look at Future and say, "Ooh, I want to be just like Future. I want to live that life." But for them, it's a fun fantasy. It's like us watching a mafia movie. For us, it's just entertainment. But for a kid who sees himself on screen, it might actually become a real lifestyle. He might really believe that this is how I have to behave in order to feel successful in the world. And so, y'all forgive me, I'm so hungry. So, somebody said ketchup on eggs. No, no more. But I don't put ketchup on my eggs. I think that's nasty too. I actually have hash browns with my eggs. So the ketchup is for the hash browns, not for the eggs. I don't do no ketchup on the eggs. So just coming back to it, a lot of us just have so much deprogramming to do. We have so many things that about ourselves that were taught to us that are so unhealthy that it's ridiculous. And what happens is we end up identifying that as black culture, like like sagging. I'm not dissing people who sag. I'm not gonna go into all that. It is what it is. It's what young people do. But the fact that people link that back to prison culture and all this other stuff, it kind of flips me out a little bit, because the prisons have become so insidious in our community that we really think that really catering our mind to the culture of being in the white man's prison is really kind of a cool thing. I'm not cool with that. I mean, I think we have to be able to have the independence of thought to develop our own culture and really say, okay, that's not black culture. That's that shit on the radio. This is black culture over here. And so I would say that for those people who are caught up in the fads, caught up in, Black Lives Matter, caught up in the recent spite of blackness that has occurred, make sure you're educating yourself on who you are. It may be something as simple as starting off by watching Hidden Colors. I think Tariq Nasheed's movie does a great job of really explaining to you with experts who would not get shine in mainstream media, letting them talk to you and tell you who you are. Tell them about your history, your rich history, and how great you are. And you can embrace that as opposed to falsely thinking that black success is connected to white validation. Renee says, drink some water. You're smacking. I'm trying to focus on what you're saying. That is so funny. I have a couple of friends. One time I dated a girl like that who literally would go insane if I didn't chew a certain way. And of course, that relationship didn't last very long. That didn't. So Renee, you and I, honey, I thought you were beautiful before we started, but I'm afraid this relationship won't last. I'm playing with you. But I'm actually gonna finish up so I can actually get back to eating. But so what I would generally say is that as we sort of go through this era, we have to decide who's in this for the sprint, who's in this for the marathon. I love it. I love seeing celebrities talking about these important issues. I love what LeBron James did the other day, the call to action for black celebrities. That's huge to me, because if you get celebrities that are for real about this, I'm talking about a celebrity who's making $1 million a month or $2 million a month, who says that I want to dedicate my life to building institutions for my community. That could be a game changer. That could be an absolute game changer. I mean, I literally sit back and I think about, man, what would the world be like if LeBron James and Floyd Mayweather and all these other celebs got together and committed themselves to building, say, over time, $1 billion worth of capital investment in the black community, or a few $100 million worth of businesses in the black community where they're making money, and they've got experts on their on their team who can help them turn, say, 100 million into $1 billion over the next 20 years. That's doable. That's really doable. It's not that hard to do. If I had just maybe 1% of Floyd Mayweather's money, I could literally change the entire trajectory of the entire black community, and I'm not joking on that. I think Floyd. Let's say Floyd makes 120 million in a year, and Floyd said, "I'm gonna give you 1.2 million per year, or 3 million a year, or something like that, to do what you do." There are so many things we could do with that money right now that would be very easy to implement because we've learned how to do a lot with very little. Everything you see me do, everything which gets me, gets our stuff out there to the whole world. Everything you've seen us do literally was financed by the money I was making on my paycheck when I worked at Syracuse. I mean, that's how it all got started. I'm an expert on capital, so I understand how to use very little capital to build something very big, and it requires a way of thinking that involves, how you see business development. A lot of people waste money. A lot of people waste so much money when it comes to building their businesses. They'll get their whole life savings and they'll put 90% of their life savings into something that isn't even making any money. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. If you could have spent a fraction of that, and probably got twice as much. So if they had some experts that were, it doesn't have to be me, it could be other people, I don't care. But they had some experts kind of guiding them, because the worst thing would be somebody who just says, okay, I got a bunch of money and I want to make the black community better, I'm gonna start throwing money at stuff. That doesn't really work, because you have to be able to see the multiplier effect of money. You have to be able to see the ripple effect, just like the way a rock ripples when you throw it into the water, and the waves kind of have the ripples, and the ripple effects are things that go beyond your initial impact, right? So a bad ripple effect might be if I'm a father, let's say, and I do horrible things. Let's say I beat the hell out of my kids or abuse them or something terrible like that. Well, the ripple effect will be that now that I've created this abused child who's going to go out into the world and interact in that way, there's a good chance they're going to abuse other people. A lot of our black boys end up molested because they're molested by somebody who was molested when they were growing up. Also, they're going to pass this down to their children somehow. Like you watch the movie Precious, that was intergenerational dysfunction that was just passed from one generation to the next. So the positive ripple effect from an economic and educational standpoint can be, if I'm investing in, if you come to me and you need help, if I give you charity, then that money doesn't really do much. It's like I give you charity, but charity does two things. One, it makes you more addicted to the charity. And number two, it makes it more burdensome on me because I got to keep giving you charity. I'm getting nothing for my money. I'm just throwing money at you because I think it's going to make your life better when I'm really only easing temporary pain. Instead, I make investments in you. I do trade with you. What does that mean? That means that two things. One, we both benefit from the money I'm giving you. It's not just me helping you out and you taking it and going away because you're helpless. It's you actually helping me out, which allows you to feel prouder of yourself. It allows you to have your self-esteem and your dignity, as opposed to me treating you like a charity case. And then second of all, it allows what I've taught you and the investment I've made in you to ripple and grow into something else. So even with my daughters, when I say my daughters, I'm talking about my two daughters. I got a biological daughter, an adopted daughter, and a couple of guy kids, and then my son. My son just came back into my life, which really, he's not my biological son. He was a little boy I helped raise, and relationships end, and I didn't see him for maybe 15 years, and he just came back, which really just warms my heart, because I love that little boy. I missed him so much when he was gone. It broke me down when he left. But so if you think black men don't go through pain, then you out of your damn mind. I know a lot of brothers who have kind of gotten the short end of the stick in situations, and it's hard to overcome that. But anyway, he just came back. So that's my family, So basically, in my mind, I have 5 kids, and so when my kids talk to me about money, I don't give them charity. I don't just say, oh, you're daddy's little girl. Let me just throw some money on you because you're obviously incapable of taking care of yourself. I don't do that. I tell them straight out. I'm like, we don't do that daddy's little girl stuff. I'm here to be a protector and a supporter and an advisor and to give you love. But when it comes to money, tell me how you're investing in yourself, and then I'll tell you how I'm going to invest in you, because I don't invest in bad ideas and silly things, So they'll come to me with proposals, with plans, with action, with energy, And what it does is it allows them to not go through life feeling like they're beholden to me. They can still be grown women. I don't have to go and micromanage their lives. But then also, it allows us to create our own Black Wall Street, the core of the family business, if you will, or the Black Wall Street is a family business, for example. That's one type of Black Wall Street. That's where you've just got a group of people who all are on the same page, who are all kind of on, looking out for each other, helping each other out, helping each other, whether it's raising money or it's, geez, the Facebook feed just went out again. Oh, this internet connection is so bad in this hotel. Give me a second, guys. I'm going to reboot this Facebook feed, but I'm actually going to try to use my own phone Wi-Fi because apparently my hotel Wi-Fi is absolutely horrible. So let me see. Give me 1 second. If you're watching me on YouTube, forgive me. I hope you guys can get comfortable with this. Okay. So let me see. Okay, so I think we're coming back. All right. So okay. So those of you who are following on Facebook, let me see here. If you're following on Facebook, I'm so sorry about this. And so if you're following on Facebook, I forgive you, or please forgive me for this. I don't know why it's acting this way, but anyway, and it's telling me my connection's weak. So apparently this part of Ohio doesn't have good Wi-Fi either, even on a cell phone. But anyway, to complete the point, basically, when you do, trade and investment as opposed to charity, it allows you a better opportunity to, and the feed just died again. So I'm sorry, guys. It allows you a better opportunity to strengthen people with the money that you have as opposed to weakening people. In fact, I've often mentioned a documentary that I think you should watch on Netflix called Poverty Inc. Poverty Inc. basically is built on this idea that that basically says that we hurt third world countries by doing so much charity for them. That basically what we think is actually supporting these communities is actually destroying them because we're killing their businesses, because we're making them, we're teaching them how to be dependent on us. We're also, presenting them to the world as a charity case. These corporations, what they do is they will go and raise, $100 million from white people by mass marketing the image of the black kid with flies on his face, and they will then take that money and they use it to pay their friends. They don't use that money to actually strengthen those communities and help them build businesses and support the local businesses. What they do is actually they will take that money and they just, it becomes a party for them, for the people who run the charity. And so ultimately, that's kind of what we can end up doing to our children when we treat our kids like charity cases. You end up basically crippling them for life. I know a brother like that who had his mother. He became highly dependent on his mother to take care of him like he's a little kid. And ultimately, what occurred in his life was, give me a second. I'm trying to start this Facebook thing again. Okay, hold on, guys. Okay, so what happened was, because she treated him as a child, like when he was a kid, because she treated him as if he was a welfare recipient and he couldn't take care of himself, then what happened was he carried those habits into adulthood. He ended up, even at the age of 40, 30, 40 years old, he was still showing up at his mama's house. And instead of doing what a man's supposed to do, which is saying, Mama, how can I help you? He was showing up at the house basically saying, Mama, can I borrow $30? Mama, I just, or calling her, in the middle of the night, Mama, I got locked up. Can you come bail me out? Mama, I ain't got no place to stay. Can I come stay with you? Mama, can you help me get a car? And this carried over into, the time into when she was actually going into retirement, and he was still showing up at his retired mama's house, who was a financially responsible woman who had had saved her little money, had saved her little pennies, and was doing okay with that. But he was becoming a liability to her. He wasn't a he wasn't an asset to her as a man's supposed to be. A man should be an asset in a person, not just a man, but anybody. You should aim to be an asset in the lives of the people you care about. You should never aim to be a liability. You should never be a consistent liability. Even the college students who, in the millennial generation, what's happening now financially with millennials is that there are the millennial generation is the first generation in American history that's actually expected to die in debt. There are young people in this country who are literally never going to get out of debt. They're going to literally die in debt because student loans are so insane. The cost of college has gotten so ridiculous, and people don't realize that there are a lot of ways to get a good education that go beyond just giving $100,000 to a university. And I talk about this, but it's like some people listen, some people don't. It is what it is. I'm not I'm not judging. Sorry, it's something I'm hitting here. But one of the things that like I said, so the artifact is that a lot of these young people are never going to get out of debt. Like you can't really expect to be able to pay off, a couple $100,000 or $120,000 in debt when you graduate from college with a degree and you can't even get a decent job. You can't even get a job making even a fraction of what you were supposed to make, or a job in your industry. So what's happened is a lot of these millennials come home and they live with their parents. Okay, and I will say this: here's what it's a good and a bad thing in this way. Number one, living with your parents is not necessarily a horrible thing for everybody. It's not necessarily something that should make you ashamed per se. The question is, are you living with your parents? Are your parents living with you? Those are two different things, right? Also, or are you and your parents just living together? And what does that mean? Well, that means that if you're just living with your parents, it means that you're just there. You're either paying no rent or very low amounts of rent. That's nowhere near what you would pay for your own place, and you're a burden on other people. Other people are taking care of you, and you have not yet gained the sense of self financially or psychologically to really realize that you also have a part to play in terms of sustaining the household, right? That's not cool. I'm not a fan of that. Now, if your parents are living with you, then it's kind of the flip, right? You're taking care of them because they need your help, which I think is admirable for any young person to do. So I don't knock that at all. But sometimes you and your parents could just live together. Where you say, hey, in order for us to survive better economically, and you got extra room, you want me here anyway, you want your child to be around, why don't we all help each other survive? Why don't we all become assets in the lives of each other? So that means that if all the bills every month total $2,000, I'm not giving my mama $100. Like that's some punk shit. Excuse my French. That's a little boy. That's what a little boy does. A man says, "Okay, mama, the bills are 2,000. I can't do half of that, but I'm gonna do what I can. I can give you 700. I can give you 800, and that's making a dent in the monthly bills. And it's also helping me because if I'm living by myself, I can't afford an apartment and utilities and everything else for $700-800. But the fact that I can stay with you for $700-800 is really cool. You're really helping me by doing that. I think that's a fair exchange. I think that's I think, and so any of the ladies, I know ladies don't like it when a guy lives with his parents, and I guess if you're trying to have sex and stuff, it's probably a little bit tough. So I guess if you date a guy who lives with his parents, at least make sure maybe he's got the basement to himself or something, right? But beyond that though, I think families living together for multiple generations, that's something that's done all over the world for survival. Because you got countries where people don't have the luxury of creating small families. They don't have the luxury of saying it's just the two of us or just us two and our child. Screw everybody else. The United States is the only place where you can have a family that that's bringing in six figures and who has like a brother who's homeless. Like that doesn't really happen in a lot of other countries. Family takes care of family. And black folks, we learn through white supremacy. We learn from our oppressor, that it's okay to abandon the people you love. And I don't think that's a healthy way to live. But at the same time, you can't have everybody be a charity case. You know, if there's a family business, everybody contributes. If there is a need to pay certain bills, everybody contributes. One of the things that that drove me crazy was I remember just seeing a family that I knew where the mother, the matriarch of the family, was always struggling financially. She was always broke, and it didn't make any sense because she had three sons who were healthy, who were living in the house, who were not contributing anything. And I said, that don't even make no damn sense. These grown ass Negroes need to be working. They need to be bringing money home. What is this? Why are you crippling your sons by letting them live this way? And why are your sons showing you the ultimate disrespect by not giving you financial support? You know, that's what manhood is. So if you're a man and you're listening, I want you to pick up the phone. I want you to call your parents right now. Call your mama, call your daddy, call them both, whoever one you can talk to, and say, what can I do to help you? You know, that's really essential for manhood. When you're in somebody's life, you need to be an asset to them. You need to be a provider and a protector and a supporter. And it ain't always about having everything all the time. It's about having a willingness to share, a willingness to sometimes take on other people's problems. If I know it's not fun, but you should do that, and a willingness to just do your best. If you're just a man that's just doing your best, that goes a long way. A man who's just out here working, who ain't got who ain't making a lot of money, that just the fact that you get up and work every day will get you a certain amount of respect. Never ever allow white supremacy to break you down and make you weak. Just make you into somebody who feels that they're a non-entity in the world. And I see a lot of brothers who do that, who fall into that, and I don't think that's healthy. So if you're a millennial and you're settled with student loans and you live with your parents, I'm not gonna clown you, but I am gonna say, at least try, work with what you got. By the way, take 1 second if you're listening online or YouTube or anywhere, and hit the share button. Share this to your Facebook page if you don't mind, or your Twitter feed if you think that other people can benefit from this conversation. Don't forget, our philosophy here is each one teach one. And I love this. I love the Facebook live discussions, because this is a great way for us to talk without it being kind of a mainstream media thing where somebody's telling me what I can and can't say. Because sometimes, the situation calls for me to be a little bit more radical than most. And one other thing too, if you haven't picked up a free e-copy of my book, It Takes a Village to Raise the Bar, you can do so at drboycewatkins.net, not .com. That's drboycewatkins.net. So I'll type in the URL. And by the way, guys, if you've been following me all morning since I started on the first feed, I hope you can forgive me. Give me a second here. I hope you can forgive me for these interruptions. This hotel Wi-Fi is garbage. And if you follow anything that I've talked about in the past, you'll know that one thing I hate about traveling is I hate bad Wi-Fi. That's one of my big pet peeves in life. And so, and the horrible thing about this hotel in Cleveland, I'm here at the Conference of the Oppressed, pulled together by Malik Shabazz. I'm going to speak later on tonight here in Cleveland. The thing about this hotel is that the Wi-Fi is going in and out, and my cell phone can't pick up good Wi-Fi. So I have Wi-Fi devices all over the place, but apparently I'm in a concrete block or something that doesn't get any connection to the outside world. Another last thing I want to mention for sure is if you want to get a copy of Hidden Colors, you can order the whole set by visiting. We made a partnership with Tariq Nasheed where we help him distribute Hidden Colors. And this is an example that we talk about in the Black Business School. If Black people work together and we partner as opposed to competing all the time, sometimes you have to compete, but most of the time you should try to partner if you can. Because if you partner, what happens is it's like what's mine is yours and what's yours is mine, that kind of thing, and it really benefits everybody. And so Tariq and I, we partnered on Hidden Colors. And so if you want to buy the whole set of Hidden Colors, you can go to hiddencolors1234.com. That's hiddencolors1234.com. And as a bonus, we threw in e-copies of 4 of my books, as well as this exclusive lecture where Tariq Nasheed breaks down, how he built his company, which he came through the Black Business School. Dr. Claude Anderson's come through. Dr. Julianne Malveau's come through. A lot of leading Black thinkers are coming through. People that wouldn't necessarily get that same respect from white folks, but they get tremendous respect from the Black community. They roll through them. I'm actually going to bring Minister Farrakhan through at some point. I have to reach out to the minister. I'm sure he would do it. I've been so busy. I haven't had a chance to call him. I need to reach out to the brother. He doesn't live that far from me, and I love him so much. But anyway, somebody asked about my shirt, and it says I escaped the corporate plantation. There's a company that one of my partners, Shante Pruitt, is starting called Unites, Unitees, and I don't think that they're selling this yet, so you cannot buy this yet. So this is, this is one of those. The price tag is unlimitedly high because you can't even get this. This ain't even out. This is 2018. But anyway, but you can actually buy it probably in the next few months. So I like this shirt because when I left the corporate plantation, I really did feel like a runaway slave. I felt like they wanted. I felt like there was an energy, a gravity just pulling me back, and I had fears. I had fears of well, what's going to happen if this whole pro-black thing I'm doing doesn't work out. Or I can't go back. If I go back, I'm blackballed. White universities won't hire me. Not a lot of the good ones. Maybe I'm sure there's some out there that probably would now because I've got more attraction in what I do. But there was a time where white folks definitely wouldn't even hire me. They would look at my resume and they'd get excited because they don't see black people like me very often because I was trained by the best in the world at the highest levels of finance. But what they do is they would say, "Oh yeah, we love you. This is great. This is amazing. You're the first smart black person we've ever seen." And then they would go and they would Google me two days later, and then they would call me a week after that and say, we thought your credentials were great, but we decided to go in a different direction. And universities are a lot like police departments or the prison system or the NCAA. Whenever there's no oversight, that's when racism gets really bad. So because universities don't have any real oversight to incentivize them to not discriminate, then they just do it whenever they want to blatantly. Universities, unfortunately, as open-minded as they might claim to be, universities can in many cases be some of the most racist places on the planet. And I'm talking about liberal schools. In fact, Supreme Court Justice Elena Kagan, who was picked by President Obama, when they went back and looked at her hiring record, when she was at Harvard Law School, she hired 32 people in 6 years. 30 of those people she hired were white males. One of those people was a white female. The other one was an Asian. And that's what she hired. She hired not one African American, not one Native American, man or woman, not one Hispanic American, Latino American, not one. And this is par for the course. See, this is the kind of thing that should cause us to be ready to burn that shit down. This is the kind of stuff that we should look at and say, hey, wait a minute, you're keeping black people from being able to feed their children because you're as racist. The KKK, the Ku Klux Klan could not have had a worse hiring record than this Supreme Court justice that the White House, that your beloved black president, was supporting. The KKK, David Duke couldn't have had a worse hiring record than she did. And except maybe the Asian person, maybe David Duke and the KKK wouldn't have hired the Asian guy, right? Because they tend to just hate everybody. But outside of that, that was about the most racist shit imaginable. And because your self-esteem is so low, because your standard for yourself is so low, because you are so willing to accept abuse from other people, it was hard as hell for me to get black people to care about this. It was hard as hell to get black people to stand up. I was getting calls from the White House, and they're like, well, Dr. Watkins, we really need you to support this nomination because Elena Kagan had the Thurgood Marshall chair of blah, blah, blah at Harvard, and that shows she respects black people. I said, I don't give a shit what chair she has. So what? Who cares what name was on the damn chair? I want to know how many black folks is she giving opportunities to? This woman gave so at the end of the day, the amount of racism that we tolerate is just unbelievable. Do you know that all the years I was in school from the age of 18 to the age of 31. That's how long it took me to get my PhD. It was the most horrific experience ever. Like, I can't describe how hard it was to do this. And do you know that during all that time, I never had, during my bachelor's degree, I got 2 bachelor's degrees in 4 years, my master's work, several master's degrees, and my PhD. I never had one single African-American teacher, ever. Not one single African-American teacher. And Marcus Johnson says, were they qualified? Now, I don't know what you mean by that. I think you're talking about Elena Kagan and Harvard Law School. And I would just say that question, you may not mean to be insulting with that question, but that would be an insulting question. Let me tell you why it's insulting. There are tens of thousands of black legal professionals across the country and around the world. There are thousands and thousands of black people who went to the top universities, who studied for hours and hours every day, who are just as smart, just as capable as anybody else, who become high-ranking multimillionaire attorneys, who have become, judges at the highest levels, who have become leading scholars and intellects, who are really capable for the job. Now, what's so interesting is that this is what white supremacy does. This is where the brainwashing kicks in. And I'm not picking on you, Marcus, but I think this question is a very good jump off point, because there are white people who will ask that same question, who will say, well, the reason we haven't promoted a black person in the Harvard Law School in 40 years, or the reason we've only given tenure to 2 black law professors in 200 and something years of existence. The second one was given tenure because Roland Martin and I raised hell on national television. That's why they gave her tenure real quick, or they pulled her in real fast because they wanted to deal with the criticism. And the sister, to tell you how brainwashed the sister was, she emailed me and said, Dr. Watkins, I just want you to know that your criticism and what you and Roland said had nothing to do with my promotion. We were in negotiations for months, and that's why I got the promotion, was because of my credentials, and I've done this and I've done that. I said, okay, well, if that's true, then why the fuck did they have you waiting 6 months before they actually made an offer to you that you would accept? Why were you sitting on the sidelines and had not accepted anything that they offered? Well, the reason you hadn't accepted it is because they were probably lowballing you. They weren't giving you what you would have gotten if you were a white man. They didn't want you that much. People think a job offer is a job offer. Job offers are not created equal. A job offer, if I say to you, you know what, April Lewis, I see you in here, Victor Pfeiffer, I really like you. I want you to come and work for my company because I want you here, and we care about diversity. We really here at Harvard Law School really want to see people like you. We need more colored folks in here. So we're going to bring you in here, and you know what, and we're going to pay you a whole $8 an hour. $8 an hour. And you might be like, well, I want to be there, and I like you too, and I'm excited. Thank you for the offer, but $8 an hour, Dr. Boyce, hey, I heard that y'all paying somebody else a whole lot more money. Can you give me something that makes sense? Then I might be like, well, okay, $9 an hour. All right, we'll give you $9, right? So what's happening is I'm telling you that I want you, but I really don't want you. See, there's a difference between me wanting you and me being willing to pay the price to truly have you. Harvard has an endowment that last time I checked, it was like $18 billion. Harvard University has an endowment that is about 20 times bigger than the endowment of every HBCU in America combined. If you took all the endowments of every HBCU, stacked them on top of each other, multiplied them by 20, I don't think they would match Harvard University. That's how much money these white folks have because they spent 400 years robbing your ass. But they spent 400 years building the country on the backs of slaves and not compensating us. So they can pay for whatever they want. I'd be willing to bet you that if I Googled who are the highest paid speakers they've ever had at Harvard University, I bet you they've had speakers they paid $200,000, $300,000, maybe even $400,000 just for one speech. I would love to. We should Google. I'm not going to Google it. We'll Google it later. I'll make that a whole nother conversation topic because I want to make sure I drill this point home. So my point to the sister was, why in the hell are you letting white supremacy make us into enemies? I think I really might have just helped you get a job. Do you really think it's a coincidence that when Roland and I, as well as the black law professors who actually brought this to our attention, there were, I think, 4 black law professors who wrote an article about this lady, Elena Kagan's horrible hiring record. The Elena Kagan, in case you're just jumping in, she's the lady who was appointed to the Supreme Court by the Obama administration. And so I said, you owe it to us for raising hell on the outside so you could get on the inside. But what they do is when they pull your ass on the inside, they make you turn against the rest of us who are on the outside who cleared the path for you. They're pulling you in. They're pulling Martin in the door and telling him that he needs to reject Malcolm and the Black Panthers. And Martin wasn't stupid enough to fall for that. That's probably why he's dead right now. So, I just think that, at the end of the day, when you talk about the racism in academia is not some wonderful, enlightened place that people think it is. Academia is like this really borderline ignorant, arrogant church. It's like a church. You ever see a church where the people are snooty and they feel like they're supposed to disconnect from the real world and that people outside the church don't matter, and they'll step over a homeless person just so they can go in and praise the Lord and pretend like they're good people when they're really not. Right? You know what I mean? Or they'll raise millions of dollars and use it for the building fund to build a prettier building, but won't actually use that to feed anybody or help anybody in the community. Like, universities are kind of like that. Unfortunately, there is especially in business schools, and maybe it was just my field because it was very white male dominated, very racist. But a lot of these business schools, they basically look down upon the idea of you interacting with the real world. So when I went through it with the university, one of our biggest issues of contention was I said, maybe y'all don't like what I'm doing, but I'm helping a lot of people. I'm out here in the streets. I'm talking to people. I'm on television engaging in these debates. I was on CNN 3 times last week. Y'all didn't even mention it. So when you're giving promotions and raises and celebrating white scholars for having this amazing impact on the world, how come every time y'all do that, y'all overlooking me? This was the kind of stuff I went through on the plantation. And again, I'm not even mad about it now. I don't even care. Like, you could literally, I'm not kidding. I'm not joking. I'm not bullshitting you when I say this. Somebody could call me tomorrow and say, Dr. Boyce, we would love for you to be the president of Harvard University. Would you want this job? I could say no, and I could walk away, and I would probably call one of my friends and say, hey dog, can you believe they offered me the presidency at Harvard University? And then I would go to sleep and take a nap. I wouldn't lose an ounce of sleep because I would have no interest in being associated with institutions that weren't built by me or people in my community. That's how I was able to. That's how much I think you want to deprogram yourself from committing to white supremacy and flip that into committing yourself to black excellence, to black greatness. And when you're committed to black greatness, what that means is that you don't see institutions as being just as good, despite the fact they're black. You see them as being better because they're black. So when I'm with the Black Business School, or I'm out here talking about hidden colors, as far as I'm concerned, what Tariq Nasheed did to me is greater than anything Paramount Pictures or Universal has ever done in 100 and something years. I really look at it that way because I am so proud of the fact that this black man built his own movie with his own money, and it became one of the best-selling documentaries of all time. And so, anyway, going back to your point, we actually started with Marcus's point, where Marcus was asking me if the reason that Elena Kagan, the Supreme Court justice, was at Harvard University and went 6 years and did not hire a single African-American man or woman, a single Native American man or woman, or a single Latino man or woman, if the reason was, if there was an explanation that, that maybe the black people that applied were not qualified, I find that to be very insulting. And not that Marcus was trying to insult us. White supremacy insults you because this is what smart white people will conclude. They literally will think this dumb shit. They'll literally think that there is this job that has been done by thousands of white men, and that there's not one nigga on earth who's smart enough to do this job. Almost like finding a monkey who can be as smart as a 4th grader. They literally think it's that much of an anomaly to find one black person in 200 years who was smart enough to do this job. Do you know how insulting that is? Do you know how insulting it is for them to have thousands of white men who've done this job? And it's no big deal when white guys have done it because they're just following a lineage. Hundreds of others of white guys have done it before them, right? And they're literally looking at your whole community of 40 million people, plus all the other billion or so a couple billion of black people around the world, and saying there's not one black person in this entire pool of people who is capable of doing this job that white men do on a regular basis. I think that is insane. I think that is absolutely ridiculous and amazing that white supremacy can brainwash us that much that we think that there can be an excuse for why an organization has gone 100 years without promoting a black person. I mean, it's crazy to me, and that's kind of what happens. It's no different from the way police shootings are interpreted. People literally will see an unarmed black man get shot on video, holding his hands up, saying "Don't hurt me," and they will literally be like, "Well, what did this nigga do wrong? He must have done something wrong," because we all know police officers are wonderful people who aren't capable of breaking the law, and we know that black men are just sort of born in this criminality where they just always into stuff. If he didn't do that, he probably did something else. That's what people do. They racism and white supremacy leads you to conclude at the end of the day that whites are superior, blacks are inferior. Whites are good, black people are bad. Whites are smart, black people are dumb. Whites work hard, black people are lazy. And even you fall for that too. You will look for every chink in your own armor without even considering the fact that all these people who got the same job you didn't get probably had the same chinks in their armor too. Sometimes I look and I see, and here's an example. And before I give you this example, it has to do with that movie Wolf of Wall Street. Before I mention this, do me a favor. If you are watching this and you're online anywhere, please hit the share button. Share this to your page real quick because I want other people to be involved in this conversation. I'm trying to make it cool to be smart. That's what I'm trying to help do. I don't diss all the coonery we see on TV, but I just think it's kind of sad that if you're the smart, thoughtful person in the room, or you're the deep person in the room, that people are going to make fun of you. That other black people will think that you're too serious, or that you're a nerd or whatever. Well, I'm not. You're not going to call me a nerd, because as far as I'm concerned, me being smart makes me the coolest person in the room, and I'm not going to walk away from that. And I even say that to Damon Dash. You know, when he makes fun of me sometimes when I get too intellectual, I'll be like, "Hey, bro, I'm cooler than you right now." But so remember, being smart is cool. That is the new black. That is the only black. That's always been the only black that there was. The other thing too is, if you haven't picked up a free e-copy of my book, It Takes a Village to Raise the Bar, you can get it at drboycewatkins.net. That's drboycewatkins.net. And so anyway, I have to mention all that so you guys can get the stuff that I want to tell you about. So anyway, here's the example. Hey, I don't know if any of y'all seen that movie Wolf of Wall Street with Leonardo DiCaprio. Did you ever see Wolf of Wall Street? Okay. Now, here's the interesting thing about Wolf of Wall Street. I know that culture pretty well because I had a lot of students I trained at Syracuse University who went to work on Wall Street, who are, making money, big money, who are at the top of the pile, who are leading blankety blanks, whatever. And one of the things I think is really interesting is that I remember when I graduated college. Here's where I was. Okay, so I finished college and I was still under this false illusion that if I go to school for 4 years, get a degree, make straight A's, that some white person would want to give me, the job of my choice. And I did get some job offers, but I didn't get the ones that I wanted. I applied to over 200 Wall Street firms and did not even get a call back. Did not even get a second interview. And when I graduated, I was the #1 black student on campus. I got 2 bachelor's degrees in 4 years. I was the Wall Street Journal Outstanding Graduating Senior, which means I even beat out the white kids. I was kind of the shit, if you really want to be honest with you about it. Plus, I worked full time. So I was a grinder. And so one of the things that you do is when you don't get the opportunities that you think you deserve, and you haven't received that validation from the white supremacist power structure that you're seeking, you question yourself. You start looking at yourself and like, well, what did I do wrong? Maybe I did this wrong or that wrong, and maybe there's something wrong with me. And don't get me wrong. There's always something you do better. There's always something that is less than perfect. None of us is perfect, but we become very self-critical in this system. That's what I mean when I say racism makes you crazy. Racism can cause you to lose your damn mind. You got to be real cautious in terms of how you deal with it. But then I watched movies like The Wolf of Wall Street, and if you saw The Wolf of Wall Street, you see just how ridiculous and ratchet and insane and undisciplined and pathetic some of these guys are that get these jobs. These white boys were off the chain. They were using cocaine and quaaludes and drinking all the time and throwing crazy parties in the office and smoking crack. I mean, just crazy stuff. And on Wall Street, making millions of dollars, controlling the trajectory of the American economy by making financial decisions that affect everybody. And so it's really interesting to me that despite their clear imperfections, you don't really see that sort of very self-critical nature amongst, say, privileged white males that you'll see amongst black people. You don't see them sort of saying, well, yeah, I went to Harvard and Yale, but I smoke crack and show up to work half the time and steal money from my company. But I'm they won't say, okay, I do these things so I don't deserve opportunity. They'll just say, this is just who I am, right? Yeah, I did these things, but I'm also smart. I also made good grades. I'm also very qualified in a lot of ways. Also, the term qualified is very arbitrary. It's not a coincidence that what is defined as qualified just happens to be more likely to be white than it is black, right? There's no coincidence that, even when I was at universities, I saw a lot of white folks come through who were no better than the black person who interviewed right before them, but the white person might have known people, or they might have fit into the culture. At universities, for example, I talk about universities because that was my plantation. At universities, they talk a lot about fit. Do you fit our department? Well, really what they're talking about is like, do we relate to you? Well, I mean, if your department's full of white people, then who are they more likely to relate to? They're more likely to relate to either a white person or a black person who is really, really good at replicating white culture, who was raised in white culture. So let's get off this whole, who's qualified and who's not thing. I mean, if I was sitting around waiting for white folks to tell me if I was good enough, I'd be sitting around for the rest of my life. I'd be depressed. I'd probably be drinking or something. I know black people who are so stressed out by what was happening on their jobs or because they couldn't get the right job. I've seen black people like that who've literally lost their minds, ended up literally in insane asylums on Zoloft and Prozac because they couldn't hold it together, drinking a lot, maybe getting involved in illegal drugs or whatever. And what I would just generally say to you is that you have value that goes far beyond whether or not this white supremacist system accepts you. And so, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and shut it down, guys. I know I've talked for so long, and if you watch this, I'm gonna tell you this: this video has been an hour, 9 minutes, and 5 seconds for those of you on YouTube. If you stay for the whole hour, 9 minutes, and 5 seconds, then that means you really riding or dying for me, and I love you for that. And so, anyway, I hope to see you guys soon. And I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for all your support. And until we meet again, stay strong, be blessed, and be educated. I am gone. And don't forget one more thing. Don't forget, I always gotta mention stuff like this. We do have our wealth building program for children at blackmillionairesoftomorrow.com. That's blackmillionairesoftomorrow.com. If you want to order the Hidden Colors set, you can go to hiddencolors1234.com. That's hiddencolors1234.com. If you just want to get part 4, you can go to hiddencolorsbundlepack.com. Hiddencolorsbundlepack.com. And it doesn't just come with the film; it comes with access to a free course in the Black Business School, plus e-copies of 4 of my books, and an exclusive lecture that you won't see anywhere else, where Tariq Nasheed and I come into the Black Business School and talk about how he built his business. And that's really where the gold is hidden. So thank you for your support, and I'll talk to you guys soon. I love you. Stay up. Peace.